When I turned 53, my daughter-in-law threw me a surprise party. But when I walked in, she and my husband handed me divorce papers. Then he said, "You're entitled to nothing. We're getting married." I just smiled and said, "Enjoy." The next day, "I was glad to have you here. Follow my story to the end and comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story has traveled." I should have known something was off the moment I stepped into my own home and spotted the balloons. Pink and gold streamers dangled from the chandelier I'd chosen 25 years ago. The dining table was set with my finest china, the same set my mother had given me for my wedding. But it wasn't the decorations that made my stomach twist. It was how the room fell silent the second I entered. "Surprise!" Zuri called out, arms wide like she was unveiling a trophy. My daughter-in-law looked radiant in a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her dark hair was flawless, her makeup impeccable. She had always been beautiful, but tonight there was something different, something that made my skin crawl. I forced a smile and set my purse down on the entry table. "You didn't have to do all this," I said. "Of course I did," she replied, gliding over to kiss my cheek. Her perfume was overwhelming, heavy, sweet, like rotting fruit. It's not every day my mother-in-law turns 53. The gathering was small. My sister Janet sat on the couch, avoiding my gaze. My neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, clung to her wine glass like it was a lifeline. A few of Zuri's friends whispered near the kitchen. And Abram, my husband of 25 years, stood by the fireplace, hands shoved deep in his pockets, refusing to meet my eyes. "Where's Michael?" I asked, scanning the room. "Business trip," Zuri said smoothly. "He sends his love, of course. But don't worry, we have everything under control here." A cold knot settled in my chest. In 28 years, Michael had never missed my birthday. Not once. He'd driven through snowstorms, cancelled meetings, even cut his honeymoon short to be here. The idea he'd suddenly choose work over family felt all wrong. "Come sit down, Clarice," Abram finally said, his voice flat. "We have something for you." I moved toward my usual armchair, the one I'd sat in every evening for the last decade. But Zuri intercepted me. "Actually, let's sit at the table," she said firmly, her hand on my elbow. "I made your favorite cake." She led me to the head of the table, the chair reserved for special occasions. The cake was in front of me, chocolate with vanilla frosting, the same recipe I'd made for family birthdays since Michael was little. But this one was professionally done. Store-bought. Perfect. Too perfect. Abram cleared his throat and stood behind Zuri's chair, his hands resting on her shoulders. The intimacy of the gesture made my stomach churn. When had he started touching her like that? "Zuri," he began, then faltered. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "There's no easy way to say this." Zuri pulled a manila envelope from her purse and placed it on the table carefully, like it was a loaded gun. "We thought it best to do this with everyone here," she said. "So there are witnesses." My hand shook as I picked up the envelope. The paper was crisp, official. Inside were documents, legal papers with my name at the top. At first, the words blurred, then certain phrases jumped out: irreconcilable differences, division of assets, dissolution of marriage, divorce papers. I looked at Abram, searching for any hint this was a mistake, a horrible joke. But his face was stone. Zuri's hand moved to cover his on her shoulder. "We're getting married," she announced brightly, as if sharing good news. "As soon as the divorce is final." The room fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I could feel every eye on me, waiting for me to break down. To scream, to beg. Janet had tears in her eyes. Mrs. Henderson looked ready to disappear into her wineglass. But I didn't break. Instead, I folded the papers carefully and set them aside. Then I looked Zuri straight in the eye, taking in her perfect smile, her predatory gaze, the way she clung to my husband like a prize. "Well," I said, voice steady as glass, "I hope you're very happy together." Zuri's smile faltered for just a second. She'd expected hysteria, tears, desperation. My calm had thrown her off. That's it, she pressed. That's all you have to say? I stood slowly, smoothing my skirt. What else do you want me to say, dear? The word hit its mark. Zuri's jaw tightened, and I caught a flicker of something ugly before she masked it with another flawless smile. I just thought we should talk about the details, she said. The house, the cars, your things. I glanced at Abram, who still couldn't meet my eyes. I'm sure his lawyer has all that sorted, I replied. You always were thorough with paperwork. I circled the table, picked up my purse, and nodded. Thanks for the lovely party, and congratulations on your engagement. As I moved toward the door, Janet sprang up from the couch. Clarice, wait, she pleaded. Let her go, Zuri snapped sharply. She's made her decision. My hand lingered on the doorknob as I glanced back at the room one last time. This house, filled with my belongings, hosting my birthday party, it felt utterly alien. Like a set piece in a play I'd just been written out of. Enjoy the cake, I said quietly. I hope it's as sweet as you imagined. Then I stepped out of my own home and never looked back. The night air brushed cool against my flushed cheeks as I stood on the porch, fumbling for my car keys. Behind me, muffled voices floated through the door, urgent whispers, someone crying, probably Janet. Reaching my car, a strange realization settled over me. It should have terrified me, but instead, it brought an unexpected calm. I had nothing left to lose. That night, I found myself in a hotel room smelling of industrial cleaner and quiet despair. The Hampton Inn on Route 9 was hardly where I pictured spending my 53rd birthday, but it would have to do. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my birthday dress, staring at the divorce papers spread across the cheap comforter. The legal jargon was dense, but the message was unmistakable. Abram wanted me out with minimal fuss. According to the documents, I'd receive a modest monthly allowance and keep my car, the house, the investments, and the antique furniture from my grandmother. All the rest, everything else, would stay with them. I should have been crushed. 25 years of marriage reduced to a few typed pages. Instead, I felt detached, like I was reading about someone else's life. My phone buzzed, a text from Janet. Are you okay? Where are you? Call me. I flipped the phone face down. Not ready for anyone yet. I needed time to think, to process. More importantly, I had to understand how I missed the signs. Because there had to have been signs. The next morning, I drove back to the house to gather some clothes. Abram's car was gone, probably at the office, keeping up appearances, but Zuri's silver Mercedes sat arrogantly in the driveway like it belonged. I used my key to open the front door and called out, "Hello? I'm just here to collect a few things." Zuri appeared at the top of the stairs, draped in one of my silk robes. Seeing her in my clothes, in my house, looking so at ease, made my chest tighten. "Clarice," she said, descending like she was making an entrance. "I won't be long," I said, moving toward the master bedroom. Actually, she stepped in front of me. Abram thought it would be better if you made a list of what you need. We can have everything packed and sent to wherever you're staying. Her dismissal was subtle but unmistakable. I was no longer welcome in my own home. Of course, I replied. How thoughtful of him. I turned toward the guest room instead, where I kept old photo albums and personal items. As I climbed the stairs, I noticed the subtle changes already underway. Zuri's designer handbag rested on the hallway table. Her shoes lined up neatly outside the bedroom door. She was erasing me from this house, piece by piece. In the guest room closet, I pulled down a box of old files, tax returns, insurance papers, medical records, documents I had organized and cared for while Abram built his career. As I rifled through, searching for my birth certificate and social security card, my fingers brushed against something unexpected, a manila folder tucked behind the insurance papers. I pulled it out and opened it. Inside were photographs, professional surveillance pictures of Zuri, but she looked different. shorter, darker hair. Entering and leaving unfamiliar buildings, slipping into cars with men I didn't recognize. At the bottom was a business card, Davidson Investigations. Discretion guaranteed. My hands trembled as I flipped through the photos. One showed Zuri kissing a man who wasn't Abram or Michael. Another captured her accepting what looked like an envelope of cash from a woman in an expensive suit. Find what you were looking for? I spun around. Zuri stood in the doorway, expression unreadable. I was just getting my documents, I said, closing the folder casually. Of course. She stepped into the room, eyes locked on the box. You know, Clarice, none of this was personal. What Abram and I have, it's real. It just happened. I studied her face, searching for cracks beneath the flawless mask. How long? I demanded. How long? How long have you been sleeping with my husband? Her composure slipped briefly. I don't think it's been 2 years. 3. Since before you married Michael. Clarice, she warned, voice low, I don't think it's healthy to dwell on the details. What's done is done. I tucked the folder under my arm along with my other documents. You're right. What's done is done. Heading for the door, Zuri grabbed my arm. Her grip was firm, almost painful. That folder, she whispered, doesn't mean what you think it means. I looked down at her manicured fingers digging into my skin, then back up into her eyes. For the first time since I'd known her, I saw fear there. I don't think anything, I said, gently pulling my arm free. I'm just a discarded wife, remember? What could I possibly know? I left her standing in the guest room and walked calmly to my car. Only once I was safely on the highway did I allow myself to study the business card again. Davidson Investigations. Someone had been watching Zuri, tracking her meetings, her movements, her secrets. The question was, who hired them? And more importantly, what else had they uncovered? I pulled into a McDonald's parking lot and dialed the number on the card. A gruff voice answered on the second ring. Davidson. Mr. Davidson, this is Clarice Morton. I believe you may have worked for my husband, Abram Morton. A long pause. Mrs. Morton, I was wondering when you might call. Can we meet? I think that would be very wise. There are some things you ought to know about your daughter-in-law, he said. Things your husband chose to turn a blind eye to. As I ended the call, something stirred inside me, an emotion I hadn't felt in years, anticipation. For the first time since stepping into that surprise birthday ambush, it felt like I might actually have a say in what came next. Zuri had made one critical error. She thought I was easy to outmaneuver. Davidson's office was wedged between a dry cleaner and a tax prep business in a rundown strip mall, the kind of place you'd pass a dozen times without ever really seeing. Inside, it smelled of burnt coffee and old cigarettes, despite a no-smoking sign taped crookedly to the door. Davidson himself was exactly what I expected, crumpled suit, weary eyes, and the aura of a man who'd spent too long peering into other people's messes. Your husband hired me 8 months ago, he said, sliding a thick file across his cluttered desk. He had a feeling something wasn't right with his daughter-in-law but couldn't quite pin it down. I opened the folder, hands trembling. The first page was a background check on Zuri Patterson. Except that wasn't her name. Her real name is Zara Petrosky, Davidson said. She's 31, not 28 like she told your family. Originally from Chicago. Relocated to Florida in 2018 after some legal trouble. What kind of trouble? I asked. Credit card scams. Identity theft. Nothing that stuck, she's slippery. But there's a pattern. She has a gift for spotting emotionally vulnerable men and weaving herself into their lives. I kept flipping through the photos, Zuri, or Zara, with different men in different cities. Always playing a role. The grieving widow. The lonely exec. The recently divorced father. Her look shifted from photo to photo, hair length, color, posture, even her smile adjusted depending on what her mark seemed to want. She's been married before, Davidson added. 3 times, actually. Each marriage lasted just long enough for her to gain access to accounts and assets. Then she vanished, left behind nothing but debt and a trail of broken hearts. My throat tightened. What about Michael? My son? Davidson's tone softened. He wasn't the goal. He was the gateway. She needed a way into the family. A marriage gave her legitimacy. That he genuinely loved her, well, that just made her job easier. I stared at a photo of Zuri locked in a kiss with another man. The timestamp marked it as 3 months after her wedding to Michael. Does Abram know? I asked. I gave him the full report 6 months ago, Davidson replied. Along with my strong recommendation to show it to your son. But he didn't? No. He said he needed time to figure out how to handle it. 2 months later, he called to shut everything down. Told me the family was taking care of things internally. My stomach turned. While I'd been planning Sunday dinners and shopping for Christmas gifts, Abram had been sitting on the truth that could have spared Michael all of this. Instead, he'd chosen to protect Zuri. There's more, Davidson said, pulling out a second folder. About 3 months ago, she started having regular meetings with a lawyer named Harrison Webb. Divorce specialist. Very expensive. Very good at securing favorable settlements. She's planning to leave Michael? Looks that way. But first, she needed to remove any obstacles in her path to the family wealth. I blinked. Obstacles? You, Mrs. Morton. As long as you were still married to Abram, half of everything was technically yours. But if you were out of the picture, and if she could turn Abram and Michael against each other, he shrugged. She'd have access to the whole estate. I slowly shut the folder, thoughts crashing into each other. Zuri hadn't just seduced my husband. She'd orchestrated the entire unraveling of my life, down to the birthday party, the public humiliation, the carefully timed fallout. She wanted people to see me walk away. Calm. Defeated. Absent. It made her version of the story easier to sell. What would you recommend I do with this? I asked, my voice low. Davidson leaned back in his chair. Ordinarily, I'd say, hire an attorney. Expose her. Do what you can to shield your son. But in this case, he paused. May I ask you something? Why are you really here? I thought about it. Because I needed to understand how my life got hijacked. And now that you do? I pictured Abram's face when he handed me the divorce papers. The gleam in Zuri's eyes. The way everyone had waited to see me crack. Now, I want to make sure she doesn't get away with it. Davidson smiled, the first flicker of expression I'd seen since I walked in. In that case, he said, reaching for a yellow legal pad, I've got a few ideas. First things first, you need to protect yourself financially, Davidson said. Do you have any accounts she doesn't know exist? I shook my head. Abrams always handled all the finances. Then that's where we start, today. Before she realizes you're not going to sit back and let her steamroll you. He tore a sheet from his notepad and handed it over. These are the banks and account numbers for every joint account you and your husband share. Shut them down. Move the funds into accounts under your name only. Is that even legal? Completely, he replied. You're still legally married, which means you have equal rights to those funds. The trick is getting ahead of her before she convinces Abram to cut you off. I stared at the list. 25 years of shared money, mutual decisions, trust. It felt like stepping over a line that couldn't be uncrossed. There's something else, Davidson added. She's been depositing large sums into a private account, always cash. I can't trace the origin, but she's skimming from somewhere. How much? In the last 6 months? Nearly 200 grand. My heart thudded. Where would she get that kind of cash? That's the question. Whatever it is, it's shady, and if we can prove it's criminal. He didn't have to finish. I understood the implication. If she was committing fraud or theft, it wouldn't matter how carefully she'd crafted her image as the loyal wife and doting daughter-in-law. One legal misstep could ruin her credibility, and any chance she had of getting her claws into the family estate. What do you need from me? Time. Access. And the ability to play it cool while I dig deeper. He leaned forward, his voice low. This isn't going to be easy. She'll try to isolate you, paint you as unstable, bitter, irrational. Can you handle that? I thought about who I'd been just yesterday, poised, agreeable, always putting everyone else first. That version of me vanished the moment I walked away from my own party. Mr. Davidson, I said, rising to my feet and offering my hand, they'd been underestimating me my entire marriage. It's time I used that to my advantage. Driving away from his office, a strange feeling settled over me, one I hadn't felt in years: purpose. For too long, I'd been a background character in everyone else's story: Abram's loyal wife, Michael's concerned mother, Zuri's convenient target. But that chapter had ended. At the first bank on Davidson's list, I stepped up to the counter with a calm smile. I'd like to make a withdrawal, I said. How much? The teller asked. All of it. By sundown, I had emptied 6 joint accounts, transferred every penny to a bank across town, and secured Davidson's files in a brand new safety deposit box. Zuri wanted a game. Fine. But she'd picked the wrong opponent. Later that evening, just as I pulled into my hotel parking lot, my phone rang. Abram's name lit up the screen. I let it go to voicemail. His voice crackled through the speaker. Clarice, what the hell do you think you're doing? The bank just called. We need to talk. This is childish and petty, even for you. Delete. No reply. Let them squirm. Let them speculate. The real game had only just begun. 3 days passed before Zuri showed her hand. I was having breakfast at the hotel cafe when she slid into the booth across from me as if we were brunching best friends. Polished as always, designer outfit, flawless skin, not a hair out of place, but there was something colder in her expression now. Something she'd stopped bothering to hide. Hello, Clarice, she said, signaling the waitress for coffee. You've been a little hard to get a hold of. Have I? I said, not looking up as I speared a piece of scrambled egg. Didn't notice. We need to talk. About what? She waited for the waitress to pour her coffee and walk away, then leaned in. The little stunt you pulled with the accounts. I finally looked at her, feigning surprise. I'm sorry? Don't act clueless. You drained every account. All of them. Oh, that, I said, sipping my orange juice. They were joint accounts. I assumed I had just as much right to the money as anyone else. Her jaw twitched. That money isn't yours anymore. The divorce papers clearly state. The divorce isn't final, I interrupted smoothly. Until then, I'm still Mrs. Abram Morton. Those accounts were still mine. For a moment, her composure cracked. Anger flared across her face before the practiced smile returned. Clarice, she said in that syrupy voice she always used when lying, I understand you're hurting. What happened at your party was unfortunate. But what Abram and I have, it's real. Neither of us meant for this to happen. Of course not. But this behavior, this bitterness, it's not helping anyone. You're just making things harder on Michael. And the whole family. I set down my fork and looked her dead in the eye. Is that a threat? I asked. Not at all, she said with a tight laugh that didn't reach her eyes. This is me trying to help you. Look, I get it. You're furious, and you want to hurt us. But be smart about how you go about it. Is that so? She pulled her phone from her purse and set it on the table. The screen lit up with a photo, me, walking out of Davidson's office. Private investigators can be quite helpful, she said smoothly. But they can also stir up problems. Especially when they go sniffing around in places they don't belong. My stomach dropped, but I kept my face composed. Not sure I follow. No need for hints, she said, leaning in, her tone dropping to a whisper. I'm telling you directly, stay out of it. Take whatever money you've stashed away, disappear quietly. Move to Florida, play cards with the other ex-wives who didn't make the cut. But leave my family alone. Your family? I echoed. Yes. Michael is my husband. Abram will be, too. And you? You're nothing. A bitter woman clinging to a life that doesn't want her anymore. You were replaced by someone younger, sharper, and let's face it, better. The words bounced right off me. I'd grown up with worse. What caught my attention was the possessiveness in her tone, my family, as though she'd won them in a game of chess. You know what's funny? I asked, pulling out my phone. I've been doing a bit of digging myself. Her eyes narrowed, lips tightening. Have you now? I scrolled until I found what I was looking for. A screenshot of a news article from a Chicago paper. I turned it toward her. Local woman charged with elder exploitation in elaborate insurance fraud, I read aloud. Zara Petrosky, age 28. Accused of befriending elderly widowers, gaining access to their assets, and slowly draining them before vanishing. Charges dismissed due to insufficient evidence, but the pattern was undeniable. That's not me, she said quickly, but the tremble in her voice betrayed her. Really? Because the resemblance is uncanny. Same cheekbones, same smile. Hair color's different, but we both know that's an easy fix. I swiped to another image, Zuri, holding that envelope of cash outside the Meridian building, captured by Davidson's surveillance team. This was 6 weeks ago. Care to explain what business you had downtown that day? Her breathing became shallow. Panic started to creep into her expression. You have no idea who you're messing with. Don't I? I leaned back in the booth, calmly enjoying the unraveling. Seems to me I'm dealing with a con artist. One who targeted my family and thought she could keep up the act indefinitely. You can't prove anything. Maybe not in court, I said, pocketing my phone. But I don't need a conviction to tear your little castle down. Just a few well-placed doubts. Tell me, how do you think Michael would react if he saw these? Or Abram? She was gripping her coffee cup like a lifeline now, knuckles white. What do you want? She asked, her voice brittle. I want the truth. All of it. She glanced around the cafe, lowering her voice further. You don't get it. This isn't some small-time hustle. There are people involved who don't take kindly to mistakes. What kind of people? The kind that don't send reminders, they send warnings. A cold wave ran through me. You're in debt. I'm in deep, she corrected. Your husband's family was supposed to be my way out. How deep? She hesitated, then answered. 800 grand. Plus interest. I nearly choked on my juice. 800,000? How? Bad bets, shady partners, too many expensive habits, she said with a bitter laugh. It's the usual sob story. Except in my case, repo men don't take your car, they take your ability to walk. So, you married Michael to clean up your mess. I married into an escape plan, she said bluntly. Michael gave me credibility. But then I met Abram. That changed everything. My stomach turned. You seduced my husband. She smirked. He did most of the work. Do you have any idea how invisible he felt? How much resentment he carried around? All I had to do was listen. Her cruelty didn't surprise me, it just confirmed everything I already knew. And the plan? Get him to leave me, marry you, and take everything? Exactly. Once I had the ring, I'd have legal access to it all. The house. The investments. The business accounts. Enough to start fresh and get the wolves off my back. And Michael? I asked. She gave a careless shrug. He was always a means to an end. He'll get over it. He's young. They bounce back. I stared at her. This woman had torn my life apart, not out of passion or love, but greed. She used my son, targeted my husband, and painted me as the villain. All for money she squandered. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. You're going to leave. You'll file for divorce, end things with Abram, and vanish. She blinked, stunned. Excuse me? If you don't, I'll make sure your creditors find you. And I'll let them know exactly where their money went, designer shoes and high-end cars instead of their repayments. Her face drained of color. You wouldn't. Try me. We stared each other down. Two women who'd both miscalculated. But only one of us was losing. Finally, she looked away. I need time, she murmured. You've got 24 hours. That's not enough. I have to plan how to get out clean. 24 hours, I repeated, standing now. Or I start dialing. She stood up too, her chair screeching across the floor. And just like that, the game flipped. She knew it. And so did I. You don't even realize what you've just done. I think I do. She didn't say another word. Just turned on her heel and walked off, leaving her coffee untouched and cooling fast. I watched her go, noticing for the first time that her flawless composure had cracked, shoulders slumped, a slight unsteadiness in her stride. For the first time since this all began, I felt like I finally had the upper hand. But as I sat there alone in the hotel's dimly lit restaurant, unease began to crawl in. Zuri was dangerous, because she was desperate. And desperate people don't go down without doing damage. I'd backed her into a corner. And even a trapped animal knows how to bite. I grabbed my phone and dialed. It's Clarice Morton, I said when Davidson answered. We need to accelerate the timeline. She's not waiting around. Zuri didn't even make it through the night. At 3 a.m., the hotel room phone rang, ripping me out of shallow sleep. Mom. Michael's voice was tight, breathless. It's Zuri. She's in the hospital. I bolted upright. What happened? I don't know. She called me, hysterical. Said someone attacked her in the hotel parking lot. She's at St. Mary's now. Mom. I know things are complicated, but she's asking for you. Everything in me screamed this was a setup. But Michael sounded scared. Too scared to ignore. I'm on my way. The ER was a storm of white lights, antiseptic smells, and machines beeping in every corner. I found Michael pacing the waiting area, his clothes wrinkled, his hair a mess. How is she? I asked. They're still running tests. She has a concussion, some bruising. He raked a hand through his hair. She keeps saying someone's after her. That they're coming back. Before I could respond, a doctor approached. Family of Zuri Morton? Yes, Michael said immediately. I noticed he didn't correct the last name. She's stable, but she's asking for someone named Clarice. She says it's urgent. Michael turned to me, his eyes pleading. Against every ounce of instinct I had, I nodded and followed the doctor to a small exam room. Zuri was propped up on the bed, a white bandage wrapped around her head. She looked fragile, vulnerable, for the first time since I'd met her. Clarice, she breathed. Thank God. I stepped closer, cautious. Michael said someone attacked you. She glanced nervously at the door, then grabbed my wrist, tight, with more strength than I expected. We need to talk. Alone. I looked back. Michael was still standing in the doorway. Give us a minute, sweetheart. He hesitated, then stepped out and closed the door behind him. As soon as we were alone, the mask dropped. Zuri straightened, her eyes sharp. Her grip tightened painfully. You conniving witch, she spat. You really thought you had me pinned, didn't you? I yanked my arm back, but she dug in harder. What are you talking about? The phone calls, she hissed. To my creditors. You thought I wouldn't find out? My pulse thudded. I hadn't made those calls, at least not yet. But someone had. Zuri, I don't. Save it. Your PI has been busy. 3 different people contacted my people yesterday, asking about me, my money, my history. Davidson's not just snooping, he's hunting. That doesn't make sense. There's a price on my head, Clarice. Her voice was ice. Thanks to your little crusade, they now know exactly where to find me. You didn't scare me off, you lit me up like a beacon. My stomach dropped. What are you saying? I'm saying your little scheme blew up in your face. You haven't just endangered me, you've made everyone close to me a target. She let go of my wrist and leaned back on the bed, never breaking eye contact. That includes Michael. That includes Abram. That includes you. You're lying. Am I? Her smile was thin and deadly. Check your phone. With trembling hands, I pulled it from my bag. 3 missed calls. 2 voicemails. I pressed play on the first. Mrs. Morton, this is Detective Sarah Chen, Chicago PD. We need to speak with you about Zara Petrosky and her connection to your family. Please call us as soon as possible. Then the second one. You're holding something that belongs to us. Return it, or we take it from your family. You have 48 hours. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. What did you take from them? Does it matter? Her voice was almost casual now. They think you have it. Guilt by association is a lovely little concept, isn't it? My throat was dry. Fix this. I can't. She shrugged. Even if I wanted to, which I don't. You opened Pandora's box the second you started poking into my past. The air felt like it was closing in. I'd tried to protect my family from her, and now I'd dragged them into something far more dangerous. What do you want? The same thing I've always wanted. Money. Enough to disappear for good. Somewhere they'll never find me. How much? 2 million. In cash. Off the books. I let out a laugh, sharp and shaky. We don't have that kind of money. You do, she said. If you liquidate everything, the house, the investments, Abram's company. It's all there. You just have to decide if your family is worth the price. The door creaked open. Michael poked his head in. Everything okay? I thought I heard shouting. Zuri's expression shifted in an instant. Her voice softened, her eyes glistened. Michael, thank God you're here. Her voice softened, trembling like a frightened child. I'm scared, Michael. These people, they said they'll go after anyone who helps me. Michael was at her side in an instant, clutching her hand. Who said that? What people? The ones who did this to me, she whispered, motioning feebly to the bandage wrapped around her head. They know about you. About your mom. About Abram. They think we're all in this together. I stood frozen, watching her carefully weaponize my son's compassion. Even knowing the truth about her, even seeing the con in action, I couldn't help but acknowledge her skill. We need to go to the police, Michael said, his tone firm. No, Zuri's hand clenched tighter around his. That'll only make things worse. These people, they're everywhere. The only way to make it stop is to give them what they're after. What do they want? He asked. Zuri's eyes lifted to mine. The meaning was clear. Money. A lot of it. Michael turned to me, panic and confusion etched across his face. Mom, what's going on? What is she talking about? I looked at him, my sweet, loyal son, so unaware that he had married into a storm. That in trying to shield him from danger, I'd instead invited it in. It's not simple, sweetheart, I said carefully. Then make it simple, he snapped. His voice was fraying. My wife is in the hospital. She's terrified. and now apparently we're all targets? I need answers. Zuri squeezed his hand again, playing the moment flawlessly. Your mother hired someone to dig into my past. She was just trying to protect you, but she accidentally tipped off some very dangerous people. It was a masterstroke, just enough truth to sound believable, expertly coded in lies. She cast herself as the innocent caught in the crossfire of my obsession. And I watched the story land as Michael's face shifted, from confusion to disbelief to anger. You had her investigated? He asked, stunned. Michael, I hired a private investigator to protect you. From what? He demanded. From having a life? From loving someone who isn't you? The words hit harder than I expected. This was exactly what she'd planned, turn him against me, piece by piece, until I was the enemy in my own family. She's not who you think she is, I said urgently. Her real name is Zara Petrosky. She's been married several times. She's a grifter, Michael. She married you for access to our money. He went pale. Stop it. I have proof. Bank statements, photos, reports. I said stop it. He pushed his chair back so hard it screeched across the floor. I don't want to hear any more of this poison. Michael, please. No, he cut me off, his voice cold and unfamiliar. You've hated Zuri from the start. You've been waiting for any excuse to tear her down. Dad told me what's been going on, how you emptied accounts, accused people, acted erratically after the divorce. He's worried about you. We all are. I felt like the floor was crumbling beneath my feet. He thinks you need help, Mom. Real help. Zuri said nothing, but the flicker of triumph in her eyes was unmistakable. She's coming home with me after she's discharged, Michael continued. Somewhere safe. Somewhere you can't reach us. And until you get the help you clearly need, I don't want you contacting either of us. Michael, wait. He paused at the doorway. I love you, Mom. But I love my wife too. And right now, she's the one I need to protect, from you. The door closed with a quiet finality, leaving me alone in the room with the woman who'd just dismantled my life. Her expression changed instantly. Calm. Cold. Triumphant. 47 hours left, she said lightly. If I were you, I'd start moving assets. These people don't make threats, they deliver promises. As I wandered the sterile hospital corridors, each step felt like wading through fog. I'd tried to protect my family, and in doing so, I'd lost them. Michael thought I was losing my mind. Abram believed I was spiteful and unstable. And Zuri? Zuri had won. But as I reached the parking lot and opened my car door, something inside me hardened. Yes, I'd made missteps. Yes, I'd underestimated her. But this wasn't over. If she wanted to dance with devils, fine. She'd do it without dragging my family down with her. I didn't return to the hotel that night. Instead of heading back to the hotel, I drove straight to Davidson's office, fingers clenched around the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles had gone pale. The strip mall was mostly deserted, the only light spilling out from a 24-hour laundromat next door, but I could see a dim glow under Davidson's door. He answered after my urgent knocking, still in yesterday's clothes, clutching a cup of coffee, fatigue etched deep into his features. Mrs. Morton? What are you doing here? You gave her location to her creditors, I said sharply, skipping any pretense. You told them how to find her. He stepped back, waving me inside. You need to take a breath and tell me exactly what you're talking about. Zuri's in the hospital, I snapped. She says someone's after her, after my entire family, because of phone calls you made. Davidson shut the door behind us and flicked on the overhead light. The office looked like a bunker. Takeout cartons littered the desk. A blanket and pillow were crumpled on the couch. I haven't called anyone, he said firmly. I've been here all night working your case. Then who did? Sit down, he said, more gently now. There's something you need to hear. Still breathless and wound-tight, I dropped into the chair across from his desk. What is it? I dug deeper into Zuri's background, like you asked. That story she fed you about debts and dangerous people? It's a cover. He opened a file and slid it toward me. Bank documents, phone logs, surveillance photos spilled across the desk. She doesn't owe 800 grand, he said. She stole it. From a cancer charity in Chicago. Nearly $1 million gone. The FBI's been hunting her for 6 months. My breath caught in my throat. What? The charity was run by a man named William Petrov. She volunteered, gained his trust, then started draining the accounts behind his back. When he got suspicious and threatened to alert the authorities, she vanished. But she said she was in danger because of debt collectors. She lied. The people she's hiding from? They're federal agents. She's being hunted for embezzlement and fraud. My head spun. Then why the hospital? Who hurt her? Davidson's mouth tightened. No one did. I've been monitoring the hospital security feeds. She admitted herself. Claimed she was attacked, but the wounds don't line up. Nothing matches the story. But I saw her, bandages, bruises. Superficial. A minor head cut. Self-inflicted. Probably used a shard of glass or a blade. Just enough to sell the story. The world shifted beneath me. It was all a performance. The fear. The tears. Turning Michael against me. She's stalling, Davidson said. Stirring up chaos. A divided family is easier to manipulate. I buried my face in my hands. I've lost them. Michael thinks I'm delusional. Abram thinks I'm bitter. She's won. Has she? He leaned across the desk, voice low and steady. What exactly did she ask you for? She wanted $2 million, to disappear. And did you agree? No. I came here instead. Davidson nodded grimly. Then she hasn't won. She's panicking. And people who panic make mistakes. He picked up his phone and dialed. Agent Sullivan? It's Davidson. I have a lead on the Petrov case. I listened in silence as he rattled off Zuri's whereabouts, her aliases, and her most recent scam. After he hung up, he turned to me, his face serious. The feds will be at the hospital within the hour. But before they move, you need to make a choice. What kind of choice? If they arrest her tonight, your family will finally see that you were right. Every warning, every suspicion, vindicated. But they'll also know you were the one who turned her in. Michael might never forgive me. Even if I was saving him from a lie, it could cost me everything. So, what would you do? I asked. He considered. Let me handle it. You go home. Get some rest. When the story breaks tomorrow, just be as shocked as everyone else. Home? I laughed bitterly. I don't have one anymore. Davidson opened his desk drawer and slid a set of keys across the desk. You do, actually. Your husband never changed the locks. Legally, you're still entitled to live there until the divorce is finalized. I stared at the keys, exact replicas, no doubt made during his investigation. He'll be furious. He'll be busy, Davidson said. Trust me. By morning, he'll have bigger problems than your sleeping arrangements. An hour later, I was parked in the driveway of the house I'd lived in for 25 years. Abram's car was there. Zuri's Mercedes was nowhere in sight. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside, half expecting alarms to blare or Abram to come charging downstairs. But the house greeted me with silence. I moved slowly through each room, seeing them as though for the first time. The living room, once filled with laughter and book club chatter. The kitchen, where I'd cooked endless family meals. The dining room, where we'd marked holidays, birthdays, anniversaries. It felt less like home now, more like a museum dedicated to a life that no longer existed. I climbed the stairs and paused in the doorway of the master bedroom. Abram was asleep, the faint hallway light casting long shadows across his face. He looked older than 56, tired, worn down by guilt and stress. I stood there, quietly observing the man I'd loved for most of my life. By tomorrow, he would know the truth. That the woman he'd upended our marriage for was a fraud. That he'd been played, used, deceived. A part of me wanted to wake him, to watch his illusions crumble in real time. But that impulse felt too much like revenge, and I'd seen enough of that in Zuri. So instead, I retreated to the guest room and lay on the bed, still in my clothes. And for the first time in days, a strange sense of calm settled over me. At 6 a.m., my phone buzzed. Janet's name lit up the screen. "Clarice, have you seen the news?" I sat up. "What news?" "Turn on channel 7. Now." Hands trembling, I grabbed the remote. The lead story stole my breath. A Chicago woman, wanted by the FBI for embezzling over $800,000 from a cancer foundation, was arrested this morning at St. Mary's Hospital. Known by several aliases, she had recently married into a well-known local family under the name Zuri Morton. There she was, Zuri, being led away in cuffs. Her sleek hair a mess, her makeup streaked, looking nothing like the flawless woman who'd sabotaged my birthday party just a week earlier. "Clarice?" Janet's voice cut back in. "Are you seeing this?" "I'm here," I said quietly. "I see it." "How did Michael not know?" "How did any of you?" I didn't answer. I heard movement downstairs, Abram, probably watching the same broadcast. "I have to go," I told her. Downstairs, Abram stood frozen in the living room, still in his pajamas, eyes locked on the TV. When he saw me, his expression twisted into disbelief. "Clarice? How are you here?" "I still live here," I said evenly. "At least until the divorce is finalized." He gestured helplessly to the screen. "Did you see it?" "I did." "I don't understand." She was so normal. Loving. Perfect. "She was skilled," I said, sitting across from him. "Very skilled." He dropped his head into his hands. "Oh God. Michael. Someone needs to call Michael." I tried. "His phone's off." We sat in silence, listening as the anchors detailed Zuri's crimes, her fake identities, her past marriages, her history of fraud. Each new revelation seemed to deflate Abram further. "I ruined my marriage, for a con artist," he muttered. "Yes," I said softly. "You did." He looked at me then, truly looked at me, with sorrow in his eyes. The kind of sorrow you feel when the life you built turns out to be a lie. "Can you ever forgive me?" A week ago, I might have said yes without hesitation. I'd have soothed him, excused his betrayal, tried to pick up the shattered pieces. But I wasn't that woman anymore. "I don't know," I told him. "And honestly? I don't know if I want to." My phone rang again. Michael's name appeared. "Mom," he said, voice cracking. "I saw the news. I need. Can you come get me?" "Where are you?" "The Marriott. Downtown. Room 412. "I'm on my way." As I stood, Abram reached for my arm. "Let me come. He's my son too." I looked at the hand on my sleeve, then at his face. "No, Abram. This is something Michael and I need to do on our own." Michael was sitting on the edge of the hotel bed when I arrived, still in the same clothes from the hospital. He looked up at me with tear-streaked cheeks and red eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said before I could speak. "I said awful things. I chose her over you. And she was." He couldn't finish. I sat beside him and wrapped my arms around him, our first real embrace in years. "You loved her," I said. "There's no shame in that. You warned me. You tried, and I didn't listen. You were protecting your wife, I said. That's what a good husband does. He pulled back and stared at me. How are you so calm about this? I could have lost everything if you hadn't stepped in. I didn't stop her, sweetheart. She stopped herself. People like Zuri always do. We sat there quietly, sunlight creeping through the hotel curtains, warming the room. Eventually, Michael asked, "What now?" What now? Abram wanted forgiveness. I wasn't sure I could give it. Michael had wounds to heal that would take time. And me? I had decisions to make about who I wanted to be moving forward. We figure out who we are without her, I said. All of us. 6 months later, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, a bright, sun-filled space downtown, mine and mine alone, when the phone rang. It's next week, Michael said. The trial. Are you going? I feel like I should. For closure. Closure doesn't come from watching someone else get punished, I told him gently. It comes from building something better in their absence. After we hung up, I stood and leaned against the railing, looking down at the city that now felt like mine. Somewhere, Abram was probably in that big house, trying to make sense of all he'd lost. Zuri was in a cell, awaiting trial, facing years behind bars. And I was free. Not free from hurt. That would take time. Not free from regret. There were things I'd always wish I'd done differently. But free from the need to play a role that wasn't mine. For the first time in my adult life, I belonged wholly to myself. And that, more than any house, any relationship, any illusion, was the most valuable thing I'd ever found. The woman who had walked out of her own birthday party with nothing had finally found everything she needed. She just didn't know she was searching for it, until she lost everything else. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Have you ever faced something like this? Let me know in the comments. And while you're here, I've left 2 of the channel's most powerful stories on the final screen. Don't miss them, they'll surprise you. Thank you for staying with me to the end.